So welcome everybody. We are absolutely thrilled that you have joined us today. For those of you that are here, you are in for a really, really special experience. Our guest speaker is so phenomenal and it is an honor. So I'm Rachel Justice, and along with Jillian Levinson, I co-lead Woman to Woman. What I always do with this group is I just do a tiny little recap of what this specific series is, because we have so many groups. I want to make sure you know why you're here. So this is the Thriving. This is the Thriving group, and we meet the fourth Tuesday of every month, and we alternate with a guest speaker. And I'm going to just read our super quick blurb, including our quote by Maya Angelou, which is, "The question is not how to survive, but how to thrive with passion, compassion, humor, and style." And the purpose of this monthly group is to help you nurture your non-cancer aspects of your life and thrive despite challenges. Navigating a cancer diagnosis and survivorship can feel like a full-time job. It can easily overtake your life and be the lens through which you view all of your experiences and interactions. However, you are extraordinary women with interests, hobbies, passions, fears, dreams, and so much more. And we call this the non-cancer group because we talk about everything but cancer here. Obviously, it certainly comes up. But the group is co-led. And when I say co-led, that is a very generous term to me because I just show up and our wonderful survivor volunteer, Audrey Carlson, really does everything else. So I'm going to turn the virtual mic over to her and I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to just be a participant and really, really enjoy and savor this next hour. So thank you so much, Audrey. Thank you so much, Margie. And thank you to everybody for being here.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everybody. And here we are. I am over the moon excited and delighted to share with you Marji Shapiro, who has been an integral part of my life. I met her a number of years ago when I was a Happiness Club speaker in Madison, Connecticut, on the choices I made to be happy. And we connected. And I have always trusted the process that people come into your life for reasons. And we're all here because we need each other. We're connected with each other through our cancer diagnoses, wherever we are. However, this particular day, on this particular time, we're going to talk about hope. And Marji has taught me so much about hope and embracing hope and love, and the work she has done has, what can I tell you? I know very few people like Marji. She has a history that and a legacy that is most inspiring. She was the deputy director of the Connecticut Office of Anti-Defamation League on the subject of embracing hope, and that will be the speaking topic for today. However, her work has been basically, quote, stop fighting hate and spreading hope. So rather than me going on and on about Marji, I think just today's time with Marji, you're going to gather your own thoughts and see what a gem she is to the world. And I want to share her with you. So I'm going to introduce my dear friend Marji right now. Thank you, Marji. Here we are.
Okay, I want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes.
So I'm going to start by introducing this friend of mine. If you can see my little turtle here, this is Hope, because I love to learn from children. And this little boy said to his mother, "Mommy, Hope springs a turtle." And as soon as I heard that, I started buying turtles and giving them to people to represent hope, all kinds of stuffed animal turtles, little turtles. So you may want to go and treat yourself to buy yourself a turtle named Hope, if that works for you. So I spent all these years fighting hate, working on issues of racism, anti-Semitism, bullying, etc. And I retired from that and said, I now want to spread love. That's what I want to do. I loved my work, loved it. And I'm going to give you one of the bases for what I learned about hope was actually from Holocaust survivors. And I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. But I got a call to speak and somebody said, "Would you speak on bullying?" That's what I did for years. And I said, "No, I'm done with that." She said, "What do you want to speak about?" And this was to a group of women in a workplace. And I said, "Hope." Any of you extroverts, like, you came out of my mouth before I even thought about it. And she said, great. And so then I said, I better do some more research besides what I know myself. And I have spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours Googling, reading, getting books, and most often talking to people, including cancer survivors, including people like Audrey who survived other kinds of things. And, you know, some of the questions that have come up, I'll just say briefly in my intro, is that people say to me, aren't you kind of like a Pollyanna? Does everybody know that old word Pollyanna, that,
Sure.
that, you know, you're not realistic. You're just a dreamer, Margie. I've heard that for years and years and years. And I say, you know, I believe hope is a realism strategy. I don't believe it's a Pollyanna strategy, and I'm going to tell you why. Even though what we hope for changes, and I'm going to talk about that also, I'm not here to say, you know, I actually collect magic wands, and I think they work in some ways. I'm not here to say, you know, we're going to just wipe out our fears and wipe out our sadness, or wipe out, you know, every emotion we feel is important. But what I want to do is talk about hope, and how hope is an action. That's one of the first things I learned when I started doing research, is that hope is an action. So I did this talk, and the person who invited me said, you know, this isn't a group that's going to have any discussion. I said, I hope someone will talk. And sure enough, we didn't leave a lot of time. Today we're going to have more time, so I do want to hear from you. And somebody said she was dealing with infertility. It was horrible. She was down to the last time she could afford, or whatever the issue was, and she had given up. She was feeling totally hopeless. And she said this to her husband's grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor, and his brother, Uncle Jimmy. I don't know why his name sticks in my head. And one day she's telling them, and Uncle Jimmy looks at her and says, but what if it all works out? And she had never even entertained the thought that it could all work out. And so now when I get anxious or I have fear, I at least plant that seed, that what if it all works out? And I was speaking to that same workplace again 15 months later, because they asked me to come back. I had to do hope part 2. And I asked her if she would tell her story. And she asked her to send me an outline. And I found out she had a baby, and that part was a beautiful thing. But then she lost a child, and it was heartbreaking. And I said, are you sure you want to come help talk about hope in front of your colleagues? And she said, I need hope more than ever. It's working for me, what I learned. It's helping me through this latest crisis. And that was very inspiring to me. And now I send her a quote about hope every single day for months, so that I have one for my, you know, I have to go find it, and then we both learn from it. So if you're not feeling it, hope, that's okay, but we can dig deep. And so I invite you to join us in digging. And how it's going to work is Audrey is going to give me some interview questions. And so you're going to picture us, whatever works for you, like around a cozy living room, or I put up some trees today outside, but we're going to act like we're having a fireside chat. If you want to, you can take some notes, so that when we get to the discussion time, if there's anything I say you want to ask further questions, you want to disagree with, you want to give an example of, that would be great. So that's up to you if you want to take notes. And here we go. So Audrey, picture us sitting together, and we'll get started.
Okay, so we're nose to nose, toes to toes, and we are having a warm, fuzzy conversation. And whoever wants to chime in and share at any point, raise your hand in the chat box, or just show me, you know, do one of these, and we'll dig deep. The first question, Margie, what do you see as the difference between optimism and hope?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go there. But first, it would be helpful to me if you all would put in the chat, when you hear the word hope, like how do you define it, or what comes up for you? And it doesn't have to be perfect, just first thing that comes to your mind when you hear hope, because that would be helpful to see. And then I'm going to tell you what comes up for most people. Future, faith, these are terrific. Possibilities, optimism. happy thoughts, improvement. It's a very more future oriented, that things will get better. It's about your outlook. Conflict, that's Ellen, I'll look forward to hearing about that, because I have my interpretation of conflict with hope. Well, keep doing that, and I'm going to tell you about the definition that, and you've gotten a lot of it, that most people, when they hear hope, they think of optimism, they think of wishing for, dreaming about, wanting something to happen. And the problem with a wish, although I love wishes, is that it makes it sound passive. And hope is actually action. Hope is the belief that you can do something to make the future better. So your said future, it's not just a wish that the future is going to get better, but it's an actual belief, even if you don't have any evidence. It's not pretending that troubles don't exist. It's the trust that we can find our inner source of strength that's deep within us and lead us through the darkness, whatever that looks like for you. Hope, this is the most, for me, of all the hundreds of pages I've read, and I'm going to talk about this several times, hope is a decision. I didn't know that. And if you remember anything I say today, to me, that's the one. And it doesn't mean you can do it all the time, but hope is a decision. So it could be part of your upbringing from childhood, but it doesn't have to be. You can develop it through your life experience. You can develop it through interaction with others, your spirituality, or from examples in life. That hope can be taught and we can teach ourselves. That's what we're working on today. I love, someone said, imagination is an instrument of hope, because we can imagine ourselves in a different context or a future context. So hope is about taking action. There is no such thing as false hope. Either you have hope or you don't. So that's something we can discuss further if you want. I learned that from Audrey's mentor that many of you probably know of, Dr. Bernie Siegel. When my mother had cancer, he was her surgeon, I think 35 years ago. And he said that there is no such thing as false hope. I believe it. If you don't believe it, that's okay. We can talk about it, but it's an important concept for us to talk about. And in the description, I wrote my favorite definition of hope, which I'll read in case you didn't see it. People speak of hope as if it is this delicate, ephemeral thing made of whispers and spiders' webs. It's not. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, the grit of the cobblestones in her hair, and just spat out a tooth as she rises for another go. Hope is grit. Hope is digging deep. And we can continue to talk about that, but that is my favorite definition that I found. So now I'm going to get to Audrey's question about optimism and hope, because they're not the same thing. Because optimism is a belief the world is changing. Hope is the belief that you can help make the world better. In other words, optimism is a passive virtue and hope is an active one. And it doesn't really take courage to be optimistic, but it takes a great deal of courage to hope. And we're going to talk about that. So again, hope is not just a feeling, it's a way of thinking. It's what you all wrote in this chat about a positive outlook and that things would get better, but it's also saying to yourself, I have the power to do something. And again, we're going to talk about what your hope for may change, but it doesn't mean that you don't have hope. And it's important, if you haven't heard of it, and you may or may not have, because I only heard of it maybe in the last year or so, something called both and thinking. Can I see a nod or yes, no, both and thinking? Yes. I find this really important, that both and thinking rather than either or. It's not hope or fear, it's both and. That two or multiple things can be true at the same time. You can feel more than one thing. You can feel sadness and gratitude. And hope, both and thinking is very big in therapy now. I've heard that we really need to know that things don't necessarily contradict each other. We can put them together. They can be true at the same time. You can feel both. So hope and fear can be felt at the same time, but someone said, and I love this, you can invite one of them to stay. You choose. And some days you just feel fear and that's the way it is. But one of my favorite self-help books is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I took that book and made it into a workshop years and years and years ago. And it really helped a group of women I was working with, that we can feel the fear and do it anyway. We can hold fear and hold hope and choose hope. It is a decision. Okay, Audrey, next question.
Okay. Why do you think it takes courage to hope? Courage.
So I used to think courage was about being fearless, but it's not. It's not a lack of fear. It's taking action in spite of the fear. I used to want an easy life. I don't know about any of you, but I used to think, wouldn't it be nice to have this really easy life? And really, where you grow and learn, even when we don't choose it, is by surviving difficult times and challenging adversity. And that's where the courage comes in. So it's not just wishful thinking, it's digging deep, as I said, and it's knowing that we can choose hope, and that, to me, courage comes in increments. And a lot of what I've learned about change is that one of my other favorite authors, Sark, if you don't know her, she wrote a book called Succulent and Wild Women, and who doesn't want to be a succulent wild woman? It's an old book, but I loved it. And she talks about something called micro movements, that any change we have comes in tiny increment steps. There are very few huge changes, whether you're talking about your health, whether you're talking about finances, whether you're talking about anything. Sark books are great. Thank you. I love her work. So if you don't know, a very positive person and funny, and she handwrites and colors all her books, so they're very different. So hope is really having the courage to set goals, and I'm going to talk about the kinds of goals. So let's move on to the next one, because as I say, I want to give you this information so we can have a robust discussion about it. So what's the next question?
Lessons you've learned about hope.
Okay. I'm saying a few things a couple of times so that you'll know those are the points, that to me were life-changing. So that first one is what I already said. I have told about a zillion people that hope is a decision, because I never knew it. So that's my first lesson. And that we wish, we could control things. And one day my husband came to me, and he was studying Stoic philosophy on YouTube. It changed his life. It really changed his life. He said he learned that, what can you control in your life? And I said, nothing. Excuse my language, but shit happens. Like, what do you mean? What can I control in my life? And he said, actually, you can control everything, because you can control how you respond to things. You have it within your control. And I didn't believe him at first, I have to tell you. I said, come on, like, there's with challenges in life, I'm going to be sad, I'm going to be scared, I'm going to be angry. And he said, when you choose to respond positively and work on a plan B, it's amazing what can happen. And I have watched him literally change his life in the last year, because something will happen and he'll stay the old way he would have responded. And then he'll say, you know what, I'm not going there. I'm going to choose something else, because I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be scared. And he does it. So I have seen it, that we know that when we choose light, we can combat the darkness, even if it's a tiny glimmer of light. And so hope being a decision, I think we can choose to live with hope. Again, you're welcome to disagree. That's what we're here to talk about. Lesson number 2, when we recognize that we're not alone, we can and create community. That's where we thrive. That's this group. That hope happens in relationship with others often. So when you surround yourself with people who are maybe on the same journey, facing some of the same challenges, you learn from each other, and that's where it gives you a fighting chance. I was at a birthday party, sat next to someone I didn't know a couple of days ago, and mentioned I was working on this talk, and she said her partner had cancer, and someone suggested a book called There's No Place Like Hope. So I don't know the book, I just ordered it, but she's the one who said being in community gives you a fighting chance, that our connectedness with each other is the single biggest prediction of hope. That's what she said. So I find that really interesting. And so you can really pat yourself on the back today for choosing to take the time to be here for this group and feel connected with others. So that's lesson number 2. Lesson number 3 I mentioned, and that is, even in the toughest times, you can emerge a survivor. And I had at first I did not want to work on the topic of the Holocaust. It was too much for me. And I said no. And I don't know if you know this expression, but I was voluntold that I had to teach a curriculum that ADL got, and I had no choice. And I really didn't want to do it. And then I was asked to bring 60 teenagers to something called the March of the Living to Poland, to go to 5 death camps. And my husband said, you couldn't even watch Schindler's List and you're going to Auschwitz. And I said, I'm going to get every bit of courage I ever had, and I'm going to do this. And I did do that. And for 15 years, I taught teachers about the Holocaust, and I would bring in a survivor, and they would say over and over, the one thing people could not take away from them was hope. It didn't mean that all the people who had hope survived. We know that. But the ones that did said if it wasn't for hope, it wouldn't have happened. So I'm just going to tell you a very brief story. So I took also a group of kids from a high school that got in trouble over anti-Semitism, and I offered them a chance to see an exhibit that was in New York before the pandemic called Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away. There were 700 objects, and there was one for me, just for me, I think, that screamed the message of hope in the face of hate, and I will never forget it for the rest of my life. And that object was this tiny, tiny little hair clip that was handmade out of metal. And here's the very brief story of the woman with the hair clip. Shaved bald, dressed in rags, and tattooed with a number, the prisoners tried to hold on to a sense of identity and dignity. Like most of the women prisoners, 16-year-old Ruth Grunberger agonized over the loss of her hair. While being forced to make airplane parts in an Auschwitz factory, Ruth she made the only possession she would hold on to through her entire ordeal, a tiny metal comb less than 2 inches tall with 6 skinny teeth that she hoped would one day hold her hair in place. I saw a piece of scrap metal and I made myself the comb, she said. I figured my hair is going to grow back and I'm going to need that comb. A young woman who held tightly to hope for a future day when once again she would have hair and freedom. This was a woman who planned to live. Whew. So I have learned an enormous amount. There are not many survivors left. I was blessed to spend so much time with the ones that were. There's a few great ones on TikTok, though. If you're a TikTok person, that are lighting up the world on TikTok, it's amazing. Okay.
Wow.
I'm rushing because I want to get to our time, but that story will stay with me the rest. That hair clip, I will never forget.
Of course.
Okay.
And I'm sorry. And Margie, you told me that when you were about halfway through your time to let you know.
Good. So it's better than I thought, as I really want to get to discussion, but I want to give us some things to discuss. Okay. Next question.
Okay. Why is hope an important topic for cancer survivors?
So I'm going to ask you for 30 seconds for you to answer that first, just for yourself. Why is hope an important topic for cancer survivors? And feel free to put it in the chat. Thanks, Lynn. Keeps you moving forward. So feel free to put it in the chat, because something you say could really change someone's life. And I'm going to go back to some of your points in a few minutes. You have to believe that things can get better. It's your eyes to the future. It relieves despair. All right, I'm going to write that one down. And I'd love to hear more about how hope relieves despair and gets you through the hard days. It gives you the strength to fight it. And people do it in creative ways. What I did, because I didn't want to teach the Holocaust, I didn't want to teach about hate. So I learned there was something called spiritual and cultural resistance, that people use their culture and their spirit to fight back. And it didn't look like the kind of fighting a lot of people define as fighting. It was creative, it was spiritual, it was incredible. And then when I went to the Museum of African American History in Washington, I did the same thing. I went looking for all the examples of cultural and spiritual resistance during enslavement, and it was life-changing for me as an educator about racism, that it is amazing what people can do utilizing their culture and their spirituality. So here's just a little bit about the research. Research shows that high levels of hope are correlated with a host of positive outcomes, such as better sleep, healthier eating, increased exercise, more fulfilling relationships, and a greater overall satisfaction with life. So that's some of the research that's been done on hope. Hope plays a central role in driving persistence, motivation, goal setting, and innovation. Persistence, motivation, goal setting, and innovation is correlated with high hope. So we're never going to get everything we hope for, right? Because the struggles are going to continue. You know, even after the war, the Holocaust survivors' lives, they might have been better, but they faced enormous obstacles, you know, that it just doesn't end like, okay, I'm hopeful and I get one good outcome and then that's it. And especially in your lives. And so I did some research about hope in cancer survivors, because that isn't what I spoke about last time. And I wanted to see what the research said. And it talked about something, and this is very powerful. And I said to Audrey, is this okay to share? She said yes. So here goes. Sometimes as cancer survivors, we need to reframe hope. A serious illness is a reminder that life is not infinite. Hope adapts to all that is uncertain and unexpected about life. So initially, many people have a hope that a symptom that they saw is nothing to worry about. Then there's hope that, okay, maybe it is something to be concerned about, but there's going to be treatment. Then we go to, I hope the treatment is going to be effective. Next, I hope that the symptoms, the pain control and the suffering I feel is going to get lessened. And then there is a time for some people that when traditional treatment is no longer possible, people say, okay, now there's no hope. And that's what I was really looking into, that how do you get beyond this point, whether it's yourself or a loved one, because I'm sure we've all been through this with people we love, and that a lot of people, even at this juncture, do learn to reframe their hope, but it's different. And we ask ourselves questions. So what do I still want to accomplish? The other topic that I am focused on in my life after full-time work is called legacy. It's calling me, and actually Audrey is helping me with a piece of it. I'm going to teach a class on it, because I think we all need to think about our legacy no matter what, not just when we get ill, but always. That what will be left undone when it's my time to die? Because you know what? And again, I learned this when my mother was sick in 1980 something. I learned from Bertie Siegel. He said, Margie, we're all going to die. And we've got to learn to talk about it. We just have got, and I was never able to talk about it all those years ago. And my mother never had anybody to talk to about it. So I decided I had to learn myself so I could be there for her, and that we can hope for a positive legacy, whether it's through your children and grandchildren and your impact on the community and projects you do. One of my favorite people in the world, when she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, she was a board member of ours, and she said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to do a legacy for women related to gynecological cancer. And she started a walk at Yale University, and she created the whole thing. It took to get the permissions, and I mean, it was a huge undertaking. And I think it kept her going for a while. And ultimately, she did pass away. But we have this walk every year in New Haven, where I live, and everybody remembers Bev Levy and everything that she did. That's a great point here, that even if all treatment for metastatic cancer is exhausted, hospice and legacy offers a different venue and a focus on hope. Absolutely, that there is still hope. And then there's hope for a peaceful death, which again, you know, it's hard to talk about, and I think it's really important. And the last one, which may be, whatever, this is something important to me. And I read it in the research that there's hope about the afterlife. And I actually study the afterlife. I've done a lot of studying about the afterlife. It's a very important part of my framework for life. So for people, that doesn't work for everybody, but for some people, that's where the hope comes in, that you're going to see loved ones who have passed, and that there's a lot of incredible things to look forward to, even if it's not, you wouldn't choose it right now, but if it chooses you, it's something to look at. So that's some of my lessons about reframing hope. If you want to respond, I mean, I don't like to move right on to the next topic after something that I find very important, but perhaps challenging. So if you have any reaction to that whole piece about reframing hope during our own experiences as cancer survivors, anything you want to share, even if you think I shouldn't have shared it, it would be helpful to know. And I know I'm sort of moving quickly, so you may need some time to really absorb it. That's what we extroverts do. We kind of jump around and move on, and introverts say, whoa, I got to process that.
We do have another question. Should we go to the next question?
Yeah,
or-
let's go to the next question, because I
Okay.
don't.
Okay, so the last question that I have for you before we get to Q&A is, what are some strategies to go from hopeless to more hopeful?
So I did a lot of observing and learning the strategies, and then I put them into my own framework. So, and it doesn't mean this is some perfect formula, by the way, but how do we find hope in dark times? And when it feels like it's getting darker at first, how do we find even a glimmer of hope? And what do we do? So I think the first thing is that, because I do believe that hopelessness can have a significant impact on illness. So, this is all things that people can try. And the first one is to explore your own beliefs about hope. And I found a great series of questions, which I will make sure you get. I'll send them to Rachel. But they include to ask yourself, or you could maybe do a whole session in this group about it. What does it mean to have hope? We've started with that one, but what do you see as some of the benefits of hope? What are the risks? Are there risks to having hope? To describe a time in your life when you had hope. I used to teach self-esteem workshops, and the way I did it was, you found a time when you overcame something you never thought you could, and you built on it. And so if there's a time that you did have hope and you start thinking about that, it's a seed that you can build on. And then there are more, but the last question I'll share is, what is the smallest possible change that could increase your hope? Like, what needs to happen for you to feel some hope? Because again, hope is a decision that we give ourselves, this powerful boost, and decide to make a conscious effort. The process, though, I think needs to include acknowledging your fear, because fear never stops trying to grab our attention from what we really want. It doesn't go away so easily. So you continue to bring yourself back and say, okay, I have that fear, but what if it all works out? Or what if, even though there are challenges, I'm going to find working on my legacy is going to give me hope. And there was something I found called a hope map, which if you Google, you can find it too. And that is about, the map is about someone talked about the future and having a vision and figuring out, okay, what's a realistic goal? And it can be related to pain management or symptom control or spending quality time with loved ones. It can be going outside and enjoying nature and putting your feet in the earth. It doesn't have to be huge things, no matter, who is learning about hope. Then thinking about your obstacles, like in any problem solving situation. Okay, I have a goal to spend more time with loved ones. What are the obstacles? And problem solve around those obstacles. And then working on your own persistence and your ability to sustain motivation. And when you don't have it, getting a partner. Find a hope partner. I made that up, but I like it. Find a hope partner. And I'm a hope partner a lot right now. I have more than a couple of friends that are cancer survivors right now. and I send them a message, a text message every morning or every few mornings, or depending on what their needs are. But some I do for months and months and months, because I'm their hope partner and I'm going to give them something to think about. So find a hope partner, and remember that even the tiniest things can bring us joy. That's Sark's micro movements, a beautiful sunset. My husband is a photographer. He pulls me out all the time. Last night we were watching the sunset, and occasionally he even gets up for the sunrise, and we're like, that happens every day. Can you imagine? So little tiny things, a great cup of coffee, a pretty tree. Because he's visual, he taught me to look at shadows and to look at, and he's also a musician. He taught me all this, appreciation for music, even wind chimes. And now my latest thing is I'm giving people these little tiny boxes called a tiny box of joy. And I've been giving them and filling them with like little cardinal, a little this, a little that, and then asking them to continue to work with that box, and even put a piece of paper with what a tiny joy would be for you. So it's finding small pockets of peace. It's coming up with your own creative outlets, making tiny boxes of joy and giving them away. I'm loving that. Something I did before the pandemic that I'm going to do again. I took blank cards because I had so many of them, and I wrote a really nice message. And on the envelope, I wrote, "This message is for you." And then whenever I was out, I would leave them, or you can get a friend to help you. And I left them like in women's bathrooms. So when they sat down on the toilet, it was in front of them and said, "This message is for you." And then this kid said, "You need a email address so that they could write and you could see, if anybody picks it up." I got a couple of those, and then I haven't done it, but I want to go back to that. Like, find something fun. I give away stuffed animals, hope turtles, and I love doing that. So I think that it's a lot about possibilities and growth, but it may be a different kind of growth that you were thinking of before you got sick, but that's okay. I love that this group is about thriving. So those are my I could go on, but I really want to hear from you. So how about if we start with any
Actually,
questions?
there's a hand raised, Marlene's.
Okay. Why don't you start us off?
Okay, first I want to say I am just loving that phrase. Hope is about the turtle. That is just brilliant.
Isn't that great?
This is now going to become a mantra, because it just, I don't know, it just captures everything. Children indeed come up with these beautiful things. The other thing I wanted to explore a little more, and what I loved is what you said, the difference between optimism and hope. Because I think for many people, we think if we're optimistic that's the same thing. But and I don't think I ever realized that hope really is an action. So I think that perhaps you could talk a little bit more about that. I think you just did. You mentioned some of the things you can do. And by the way, that idea of leaving the messages in the women's bathroom, oh my God. So funny, so great. But I think sometimes one of the issues with illness and a lot of other things in life is, even if you focus on what you can do in terms of attitude or whatever, there is the thought that some things are just out of our control in terms of how something will progress. And I think sometimes hope is just saying to yourself, okay, whatever shows up, I'm going to deal with it. And however it shows up, I'll be okay. And you mentioned a book, which is, I found it a life-changing book. I read it, I don't know, years ago, decades ago, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, which I think goes back to what you were saying about both and, because I think sometimes we think that if we're feeling fearful, we can't also feel hopeful. And I think what you've really done a great job of exploring today is that you can have both. It isn't one or the other. And this alone is to me is a very freeing attitude, because it says you don't have to get locked in one. You can be in both places. You can still do something. And I think the other part about hope that maybe you could talk about is, and it becomes a problem for people, is hope sometimes, like prayer, gets involved with the outcome and with expectations. Yes. And I think if you have, if you focus, I mean, I got through cancer by having no expectations. Because if I had started with the expectation that I have to get better, that it has to be okay, I could not have gone through treatment, because, to me, it was, how can you say this? How can I even believe it? I don't know. And I went into a state of what I call suspended animation, no judgment. And I think sometimes with hope, that's also a part of it. We're going to do, and now, as you said, do what we can, and release ourselves from the outcome or the expectation, because sometimes that's what I think limits our optimism and our hope, that it has to be a certain way. So this was a brilliant presentation. I look forward to hearing more and reading more about what you've done. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You just made my day. I have a friend who's a cancer survivor that I want to recommend as a speaker, and her research is on radical self-compassion. And I think that that's a lot of it. And I told her I want to learn from her, and I want to be able to run workshops on that too, because I used to teach self-esteem workshops years ago, that our self-compassion is often not there. I have never heard more self-loathing and about everything. And I don't know why we have that so much. Even the quote unquote most successful people, whatever that even means, I'm shocked. Kids, not little ones, but older ones, teenagers. So, I think that doing what you can and then letting yourself off the hook, telling yourself, like, this is good enough. If all I can do today is get up off the bed and go to the bathroom, great. And if I need help for that, fine too. We measure ourselves by these ridiculous standards. And, so I think all of what you said. What's your first name? Because I only see an M. Oh, you're still on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Marlene. Anyway.
Marlene, I love to call people by name. Marlene, thank you. That was really helpful what you shared.
And Janet's hand is raised also.
Okay, Janet, what's on your mind?
Oh, sorry. So I also, I definitely can relate to the hope thing, because 12 years ago when I was going through cancer, I started out as sort of a broken person, just doing what everyone told me. And then I saw signs, like the nurse the first day said, this is what you have to do. Every time the chemo goes into your body, you have to picture it killing cancer cells. And every little sign like that. And then I met Robin, one of the women to woman people. And she said, at the time, I guess she was like 15 years or something like that, a 13-year survivor. And that gave me hope. So little by little, different signs along the way, and part of that is because, like, I'm a faithful person and I believe in signs from the universe. Yes. And I really got them. Yeah.
So if you believe in them, you believe in them, you're going to see them. That is so great. What I didn't interrupt you. What else?
Yeah, there was another night where I was praying, because I prayed every night and I still do. But at the time, I was just praying to get better. And I said, please, I have a family, I need to survive. And the next day I woke up, and at the time I had my radio clock alarm. And the first thing I heard was like a song about angels. And then the second thing I heard was like a song about something else with angels, all 3 in a row. And I was like, whoa,
wow.
I recognize the signs, and someone else might not have that faith, or, but little by little along the way, I just knew that I was going to get better. And I had faith in that. So I guess that's hope too,
Oh, that's hope too.
Yeah. It works.
It works. And signs are, if it's your thing, which it's mine big time, it's amazing the signs you can see, including the ones from our loved ones on the other side, I believe. That's a different topic though. Okay, who else?
Thank you.
Reaction. Feel free if there's something you want to question, you don't agree with it. Or if you have any part of your own story you're willing to share, telling your story changes lives. I created a program out of that for kids called Names Can Really Hurt Us, about bullying, that reached 300,000 kids. That's my legacy, because I don't have my own kids. And the stories the students told changed my life. They completely changed my life. So we'd love to hear any part of your story.
Anybody else out there? Because I can speak up. It's Audrey. I have never not had hope, and I have always had deep unconditional, unshakable faith. And I just wanted to trust the process, and whatever landed in my lap, I'd figure it out. I just knew I would figure it out, and somehow I would navigate through. I don't know, I didn't know how I would navigate through all the treatments and losing hair and trying to wear the cold cap and not knowing if I was going to end up with any of the symptoms a lot of my other friends did. But I just said, whatever lands in my lap, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to trust the process. I have faith in God, and always had hope. And for me, in some respects, it's a survival skill. And in other respects, it is that action. It is a choice, because we become our words. Yeah. Thank you. Margie, this has been amazing and wonderful. Is there anybody else out there that might have a story or just a suggestion or a question, anything at all?
Andrea.
I think go to Samantha first.
Okay,
She's there.
Samantha.
Samantha.
No, you could go ahead and then I'll go after you. That's fine.
Okay. I've always had hope. And my cancer was 20 years ago, and I'm going through a new diagnosis of something now, CLL, which is in most cases moderate, but because I've already had chemo, I'm in high risk category. And I still have hope, because you arm yourself with information, not too much because you could overdo it, but that there are treatments for what you have to go through. But I hate roller coasters. And to me, cancer was like a roller coaster. And I was on it, and I had to hold on. I knew I was going to get off. I hate roller coasters, and I'm going, this is interesting. It was sort of an out-of-body experience going through it the first time. And if I have to go through treatment eventually again, I'm looking at this as an out-of-body experience again. Okay, there are treatments. I'm armed. I've got a great team around me. I've got great people here with Women to Women, and I'm calm. And staying calm is educated and calm, not stupid and calm, but is a very big part of not panicking. And that's all I need to share with you is you don't panic, breathe. Even when I deal with my students for anything, they're coming to me and they're shaking, and I'm saying, breathe. We could deal with this. Breathe. What I want to say to them, it's not cancer, but I'm just saying to them, breathe. So,
Well, Andrea, very, very helpful. I hate roller coasters too, and now this is going to make me think even more about the analogies there. And I loved what you said about be educated and calm, not panicking, and be educated, but not overly. Like, read and, sometimes people make themselves very anxious. So, all right, Samantha.
Hi, Samantha.
Hi, how you all doing? Thank you for the presentation. I got so much out of it. It just really continued to already give me the hope that I have. And I think about when I was when I was diagnosed and, with endometrial cancer and going through the treatment and the radiation. And for me, the hope was the indicator that it really was my belief that no matter what, I'm fighting this, no matter what, because and I'm gonna and it might land wrong with some people, but the hope for me was I'm not ready to die, so I'm not giving up. Right, that was how I was, and that helped me to continue to have a positive frame of mind. For me, hope is just having a positive frame of mind. And I experienced many fears with the treatment, fears of having to do the MRI and going into that little bubble, right? And when you talked about, right, hope is not having fear. Hope is facing the fear face on, head on, right? Hope is, despite the fear, still walking through everything that I need to walk through and embracing the fear, acknowledge I'm afraid, right? And I remember it when I was doing the MRI. You know, I just prayed. I just prayed the whole time. I kept my eyes closed and I said, breathe, breathe. God, just help me. God, just help me. Just let me get through this. Right. So the hope was that despite me being afraid, that I would get through it. Right. Despite experiencing some of the side effects, that I would get through it. And even while I was doing treatment, you know, I was in school, in divinity school, and in Silverman School of Social Work. I'm obtaining my degree, 2 masters. I was working part-time, you know, so I was still doing those things. And that was the hope, right? The hope was that, you know what? I don't have to stop going to school because I have this diagnosis. I don't have to stop working because I have this diagnosis. I'm going to be able to do all that I have to continue to do. I'm going to live life despite this diagnosis. And so I love that this topic was on hope, right? Yeah, I really do love it. Thank you.
Samantha, that was powerful and profound. And you rocked it in terms of how you connected with my mind thoughts, and you're brave, and you're facing the fear. That's being brave, that's courageous, and your deep faith. You're good. Yeah. Thank you. I think we have, what, 3 minutes left?
And can I just add, because
Yeah.
we all don't have faith, right? So it may be someone on here, excuse me, we all don't have hope. It may be someone on here right now who is feeling a little hopeless, right? And if you are on here and you are in that state, grab on to our hope. Have hope that we have hope for you, that you will get through. We have hope for you that your symptoms that you experience will be tolerable. We have hope for you. So even if you do not have hope, because we all do not experience hope at the same time, some of us are hopeless because of our diagnosis, because of life circumstances, of what's happening at this moment. And if that is you, just hold on to our hope. Know that we have hope for you.
That's
You
beautiful.
brought tears to my eyes, Samantha, because we need each other in this world. And thank you. Like I can see it, even those of you who didn't want to speak, which was fine. But I'd love it if people could put in the chat something you're walking away with, something. Really help us, because we'll see your idea, but also think to yourself, what's one thing that I'm going to remember from this that's going to help me? In addition to going out and buying yourself a turtle.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, stuffed animals are I've got a whole project going with stuffed animals, and everybody needs to hug one. I wish I could send you them through the Zoom, because I have a whole bunch of them sitting here waiting for new homes. But I particularly love the turtles. So,
My cardinal.
oh, you got a cardinal from me. Yep. So buy yourself somebody to hug. Yep. Hope is a choice. Hope is a decision. Yeah, hope can be contagious. Absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully, hope and fear can duly exist, but make the decision to hope. It can get you through tough times. Even when you find one little thing to laugh at. Yeah, hope is community. I'm sure Rachel and Audrey, if someone here really needs a hope partner, you can help them figure out how to do that. Yes.
Of course.
Yeah. Never gonna look at a turtle the same. I mean, I always liked turtles, but I was never into turtles. And now I get so excited when I find one or see one. Yeah. That little boy has no idea how many lives he's changed, because I read what he said on some Instagram site where people share wisdom of children. Yeah, it really is the small things. It is the sunrise. It is connecting with another person. It is hugging a stuffed animal. It is the tiny things, no matter where we are in our life, that bring us joy. In fact, one of the survivors said that after the war, she met an American soldier. She married him. She moved to the US, and she had a good life. And she said all she ever yearned for the entire rest of her life was one evening at home with her family that all got murdered. One evening where her father was reading the newspaper and her mother was cooking and her little brother was running around. And that's all she yearned for the entire rest of her life, was one average evening at home that we all have. Whatever, even if it's you enjoying something you like to eat or watch or read or whatever it is, that's what we yearn for. It isn't, necessarily huge trips or all the things people get, FOMO about on Facebook. Like, it's not those things. And when you're not feeling well, if you're feeling well enough to do something for someone else, that really helps too. I mean, I've talked to people who are really up against something bad, and all they want to do is do one little thing for someone else, just to feel that feeling of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, every breath is hope. Hope is letting you realize that there is light at the end of the tunnel. So we can have these things from the chat, right, Rachel? Somebody can capture them, I think.
Yeah, I think
know.
video editor.
And Andrea, which book? And
I was just typing it. I hit it too fast. Sarah's Keys.
Oh yeah. Woo. That's a rough one though. It's a novel, but it's
yeah, and they made a movie out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a hard time, I have to tell you. Like,
I love the elephants.
I love that.
The upturned trunk also represent hope. I have elephants everywhere in my house. In fact, my guest room downstairs has elephant wallpaper and elephants everywhere. And I love that.
And elephants also represent sisterhood.
Yes.
So if Women to Women needs a someone to be your symbol, because elephant women, females, take care of each other. And so I also give elephants to people about sisterhood. So that could be your sign, is if you see an elephant, that's your sisterhood.
Love that.
I also give away fish, stuffed animal fish, because this little girl was fighting cancer and she said she sings that song from Nemo called Keep on Swimming. And that's how she does it. Because I think when we have a symbol for ourselves, it really helps.
Yeah.
So if any of the ones I've mentioned or Audrey mentioned or anyone else mentioned, treat yourself. You have my permission to go out and buy yourself a piece of jewelry with a fish or a turtle or an elephant or a butterfly or anything that can be your hope symbol. That could really help you. And then someone will say, what's that? Oh, that's my hope symbol. And talking about it and sharing it. So I do hope that you'll go and share this. And I'm going to read one more quote that I found that I really liked. And if there are books about hope or related to hope and you want to suggest them, articles, that's really helpful to have too. I'd love to start a resource kind of center. But here we go. Oh, TED Talks. There are great TED Talks on hope. So if you're not in the mood to read, I watched several of them when I wrote my first talk on hope. They were great. And I found there's a whole center for it at some university in Oklahoma where they study hope. Like, there's a lot going on. Okay. When the world says give up, hope says try one more time. Our mission is to plant ourselves at the gate of hope. A gate is always a place of possibility. If we can figure out how to open it and gather the courage and the tools and the trust to take a step, even when we can't quite envision what is on the other side.
I love that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Margie. We are about out of time, but I want to say that, you know, in terms of hope for me, hope is that there are people like you who are spreading this message of hope to those and the populations you've worked with. I mean, between Holocaust survivors and children who are dealing with bullying and, you know, cancer survivors. Again, people like you give me hope that the world is an amazing place, and that, you know, and it is just inspiring to be in your presence. And I got chills so many times, and it's warm in my, you know, where I am right now. I got chills so many times during your talk, which means it just resonated with me, not just emotionally, but kind of physically also. So we really cannot thank you enough for, you know, sharing your knowledge, your passion, your experience, your stories with us. This is something that we will always remember, and you know, and it was really a privilege. And thank you all for being
Thank
here.
Can I let people follow me on Facebook? Because I write something at least every day or two that's powerful. That's what I want to do with my life. And my husband's a photographer, so I often use his images, and I write something for people to think about. Like, I'm going to write about this today. There's no question.
Absolutely.
But,
Absolutely. Do you want to put like your,
well, it's Marji Shapiro. Make sure you spell it with a J, Marji. And you can also, my husband does a photograph a day since COVID started, because he had no work as a freelance photographer. So he started something called Crisis Creativity, and how he found creativity even more in a crisis, and used his photography, which he also has used with all kinds of groups. So if that's a way for you to express yourself, by the way, if you play music, that's great, or love music, but photography, most of us have the kind of phones that take decent pictures. Take pictures of anything that gives you joy and share them with each other. And if you end up on Facebook, share them with me, because, you know, anything. My husband worked with a group of homeless women, and one of them, they took pictures of things that were important to them, and one of them took a photograph of keys and said, I have an apartment, I have keys to something for the first time in decades, and it still makes me cry. That was her photograph. So powerful. So photograph something that's going to help you with your resolve about hope, whatever it is.
Thank you.
Margie, I just want to show you, this is my little
Oh,
hope.
oh, what is it? Oh,
It's a
Superwoman.
Superwoman that my
Wonder
son
Woman.
gave me when I was first diagnosed. And
I
he always
love
said,
it.
Mom, you're my Superwoman. And this is what helps me when I go through
Love
hard
that.
times.
Oh,
I pull this out to remind me that I'm
I
have to
love
be
it.
here for him.
I love it, Nancy.
Nancy, thank you. I love that. See, we're just getting started now. That's what always happens. But thank you. Maybe
Thank
I'll do
you.
part 2 someday.
This was amazing, and we would be honored to have you back for part 2.
We would love
And
to do
thank
part
you.
2.
Yes.
We
yes.
love you, Margie, Rachel.
Right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
I'm
Thank
honored
you.
to be here.
Lonnie, Nancy,
everybody.
Thank you,
everybody.
Margie. Thank you.
Okay,
Everyone, have a
bye-bye.
great day.
Everybody.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.